I only have one rule. Everyone fights, no one quits.
Welcome to WTC Squadcast, a podcast focusing on international matters, tournaments, communities, and the World Team Championship. The WTC is a proud partner of the T-Sports Network, Best Coast Pairings, and is sponsored by The Army Painter. If you'd like to support the podcast and the WTC, please visit our Patreon at www.patreon.com/WTC Squadcast. Now, let's get on with the show.
Hello everybody and welcome to the WTC Squadcast. Our new mini-series is called Into the Squad, where we'll be interviewing captains in the WTC community one by one. And starting with our very first episode is the Korean captain Soo Hoon. Hi Soo.
Hey, how's it going?
And obviously Soo is, like I just from Korea. They're trying to form a team there and a community there. So can you tell a bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, so I am a design and fine arts teacher at Chadwick International School in Korea, South Korea. And I am I'm a very much of an avid 40K lover here. And I also have a Warhammer club at our school to kind of like reach out the hobby to our younger generation. And yeah, ever since I came here about 2 years ago, like 1.5 years ago, there was not much of a expat community, so I thought it would be a great idea to kind of get it started. So now we have about almost 90 plus members.
That is quite a bit. That's more than most countries' total player base, actually.
Yeah, but not that's to say just kind of that's a general population. Many of them are just kind of casual players or a lot of the beginners here and there. We do have a very solid competitive group, probably solid 20, 30 players that are really solid. But we're trying to reach out to our community a little bit more to build up their collections and, to engage with our community and, maybe get into the tournament scene. Yeah, as much as possible.
Okay, we'll get actually to that as well. You are actually hosting event days and tournaments as well, right? I mean, it has already started.
That's right. Since we created our community, we have ran multiple RTT events that is also validated by ITC as well. And we've been kind of training for, actually for WTC and LVO. We are trying to get to play with a lot of different terrain setups so that we can be trained for any kind of situations in the future. So that's kind of what's happening in our community. So we're trying to get more and more people engaged, and hopefully with the ITC ranking kind of involved as well, that will kind of put more stake on the line. And that's kind of what's happening in our community so far. Yeah. Actually, there's a tournament that's happening about a week from now, so on the 16th. So there's a small one that's happening in Seoul. And that'll be really fun, and maybe we can talk about it.
How many people will be in that tournament?
There will be a total of 8, so it'll be a very small RTT, yeah.
Although that's usually 8 is great, then it sort of gets into registration of up to 20, then you sort of, at about 50, you actually notice into larger events. All right, so I have some questions for you, if you don't mind.
Yep, go for it.
First of all, how did you actually hear about the WTC?
So I got to know you guys through Facebook a little bit. Now, Facebook kind of, up and down, they got big publicity, but I think it's also a really great social networking tool. So I think it was actually Team Japan that posted a comment in one of the Korean Facebook forums, and he was asking if there were any 40K players that are wanting to join the WTC team. but I'm guessing is because WTC team is a team event, and you need a lot of highly qualified players who are really really serious about 40K. So I'm guessing he wanted to kind of team up if there are any other potential players that could team up with Japan. Perhaps we could create some sort of like Team Asia, so to speak, and then hopefully join the WTC scene. I think that's where I first saw it. And I messaged him, and then from there I got to know you guys and engage with you guys a little bit more in that sense. So yeah, it was from a Facebook post that I saw that Team Japan posted.
All right, that's yeah, I agree. But there are some potentially bad things about Facebook that we shouldn't get into now. But it's indeed a great tool to connect all across the globe. It's incomparable, really. Uh, you have first about WTC through Team Japan, but how was your introduction to 40K in general? How was your introduction, especially to this tabletop gaming hobbies?
I was introduced to 40K when I immigrated to Canada, actually. So by citizen, I'm Canadian, but by blood, I am Korean. But when I went over to Canada, I walked into this hobby shop and I saw this amazing collection of Tyranids that was, in the glass display case. And I was just mesmerized by these beautiful painted models, and they had all these fantasy models as well. Of course, being young and being, immigrant, there's not much money that, a kid can spend on a model. And even back then, it was quite expensive. So it was not until quite later on, after university, after graduating and getting a job overseas, I got a job at a Canadian International School in China, Guangzhou. So there, one of my colleagues, he was really into tabletop gaming and just board games in general. And he really kind of took me under his wings. Jackson, shout out to Jackson if he's listening to this. He kind of showed me about Warhammer and War Machine and Horde. He taught me all these type of games, and he also connected with me with the local scene as well. So he's the one that kind of got me into the game, and he also was the one that kind of branched out and started a 40K club at our school. So we were also engaged with our students. Yeah, so it was through that experience, and as as a teacher now, I have a little bit of more income, so that I can actually buy models, and the ones I can actually buy models and build up my collection. So, and you'll be surprised. There's a huge community in China, both expat community and Chinese community there. Yeah, so I really got kind of. I just went down the hole, so to speak, when I went to China, and then I just brought that over to Korea. Yeah, so I mean, there's already a big community here. All I did was kind of create a forum for that people to kind of come, and then create events so that people can actually meet and mingle together. So that's kind of how I got into it. So I guess I have to thank China and and my colleague Jackson for that, for getting into this addictive hobby.
So it actually doesn't start with Korea in Canada when you first saw the miniatures. You actually have to go literally across the world to China and then meet with Jackson, who introduces you deeply into this. Then actually, well, that is an interesting story, I'll admit. It actually took you a while until you were a proper adult to. Like all of us, I presume, if our mother or father is not buying it, we sort of have to clench that thirst after getting a job ourselves. Okay.
Yeah, my dad. The only thing that my dad bought me was a chess set, so we would play chess a lot, and I think that almost kind of prepped me for the 40K later down the line. I think that's kind of. I guess I can thank my dad for that too. Kind of a little prep. But we didn't have any 40K models when I was growing up, unfortunately. Yeah.
Chess is cool, but the models aren't as pretty.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into the Team Korea proper. You already mentioned like there's around 80 to 90 people in total in Korea that's into this 40K thing, whatever it is. But how does your team work? from my understanding, you weren't able, obviously because of COVID, you weren't able to attend the big events across the sea just yet. But if, let's say, if you were going to send a team tomorrow, how would that work? How would you select your team, and would it be a simple tournament or would there be a league? So that's something we would like to know.
So thankfully, our meta is very healthy. There are a lot of players with all different types of factions. So for us, if I had to choose my team, I think I would have my team already filled out, no problem. And if someone had to switch out to a different faction, I don't think that's an issue either. I think the biggest hurdle is just the real life constraints. Taking time off work. Making sure you set out enough money aside to travel costs. I think those are the players are not the issue. Like that's definitely not the issue. The issue is just the logistics of it all. That is our currently the biggest hurdle for sure. Some of us are already signed up to go to LVO already, including myself. So if you guys are going, might see you guys there. But yeah, for now, for the WTC, it's just figuring out when everyone can take off time, work at the same time, and buying the ticket and all these things. That happens to be the biggest hurdle for us, for our team, anyways.
Okay. First of all, I need to stop the recording because I think there's an error. Okay, we are back again after having some technical difficulties, and okay, so my next question will be about how would you place the current Korean community in the global community? If let's say the tournament was tomorrow, how would you place? Like, can you tell us about the players in the member, their skill level, experience, and so
on? I would say we could probably rank maybe mid-tier, maybe a little bit higher up, maybe around there. We have a lot of great, solid group of members here and very dedicated. We actually have a couple of different forums, and we have a main one, which is just a general chat, and we have actually just another forum, which is called Warhammer Competitive, just for the people who are just really into competitive scene. Mm-hmm. So yeah, our team is pretty healthy. If they were all attending, that'd be great. We have some org players. Like I said, our meta is very healthy. So I can just list some couple names. We got Justin, who is Justin. He's a Sisters and Necron player, and we have Luke, who's a DG player, and we have Nicholas. He's more of he used to be a Blood Angel player. Now he's a Demon player now. And we have Remy, who is a Black Templar player. He's patiently waiting for the new Black Templar.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all waiting for that perk? Even if you don't like the actual rules, the models look great, except for the Emperor Champion, which is weird.
If I wasn't playing Tyranid, I would probably choose Black Templar because I just love their aesthetics. Definitely. And we have Rock, who is also a DG player as well. So, I mean, pretty solid group. And Christoph, who is a Space Wolves player. And Benny, who is, he plays White Scar and Guards. He has many different armies, so it's kind of hard to pin down Benny. And then we have Demetrius, and he plays Admech and Grey Knight. So I would say our players are... probably, if we had to rank them, I think we'll probably place around mid-tier, maybe a little bit higher, just depending on how the matchups would go. But I think we're pretty good. I think everyone knows their army well, and it's a very solid group. I would say pretty solid group.
Okay, that's good to hear. It's I hope you actually your prediction comes up, because there are a few cases where people come to the ETC back then, and these are usually with the smaller communities. They think that they are well informed, but apparently not. And there are some intricacies about the WTC which really cannot be explained, at least in just a podcast. You need to be demonstrated, and I hope you actually match that number. This is not a discouragement or anything. It's you actually place mid tier and you get the hunger for podium, because there are some teams that have placed like fourth or fifth, and they just like they want to work much harder next year to get that first place or at least third place, so they can actually get to the podium and you know show off, because there is no prize here. We are not doing this for any money. Like there are prizes, but there's no monetary prize. Nobody's really making a career out of it. It's all for the players, by the players, and I'm happy to hear that you actually have a really active community and who can, and I hope you guys actually make it to 2022 event. And I actually have a bonus question. This is more like a free form thinking. This is, I know this might be a bit vague because you haven't attended an ETC before or WTC. How would you describe your ideal WTC? Like what do you expect to see when you come to the event and when you enter the hall?
I think since I also ran some tournaments as well in China and in Korea, what I want to see is how well the events flow. So I want to make sure that their organizers are making sure that everyone's on track of time and making sure things are running smoothly and efficiently. I think that is really one of the key aspects of running a really great tournament, making sure everyone's on time. And I mean, I personally have felt like pressure, like, we got some players that are, playing, off the clock a little bit. We're running behind a little bit. We don't want to like pressure them, but, sometime at some point you have to just cut it off and then you guys just gotta keep going.
Yeah, I understand it perfectly, especially if it's a friend. You don't want to like bully them into playing faster, but you also want them to be able to play faster. So it's like, I know, but come on, man, you can't think about just the movement phase for half an hour.
Right. And time is such an important aspect of the event, and making sure everything's running smoothly and just I guess a great event is when there are no hiccups. And if there are hiccups, how fast you can adjust to those challenges, and making sure that those challenges are solved as fast as possible. So I think you need a really good team to kind of think about all these different things that might arise, and then adapting well. So I just want to see an event where it's just run smoothly. I think and then if when the events are running smoothly, I think everyone will have a good time. Even though it's a lot of bookkeeping and logistics, I think in the end it really pays off for the players and the TOs.
Yeah, I agree with you fully. It's although there can be more bells and whistles if the event itself is like getting into errors or having some issues, it sort of like takes over the visuals of ideas of everyone, and so people might although a bit incorrectly focus on the small errors instead of the bigger picture. So it's important to just have the basics done and have a smooth event running across. So and that we are working hard on it. We're working hard to bring the smoothest, the best running event possible, and I hope when you come next year you'll be able to experience that. And so, but are there any, let's say, specific things, or do you, let's say, want Bacardi or something in the bar, or we want to have this specific merchandising of the WTC? One thing that you definitely want to see that's more tangential.
Honestly, just being in that event and interacting with players from all around the world, and I saw that there's a tradition where you swap dice with other team or other country, and
Exactly.
that's what I'm looking forward to the most. To be honest with you, just being able to handshake and then grabbing that little piece of I guess a dice from Team England or Team Hungary or wherever other countries. I think that's probably what I would look forward to the most. I don't really care about all the other merch and stuff, but just that experience and interacting with people.
That's actually one of the. That I fully agree with you. The dice swaps are great. I think I have about a few hundred of them so far, and we always produce for our team more than necessary, just for 8 players, like around 500 just for 8 players, so we can just give them out and take them back. And people have collections much bigger than mine. They like they've even forgot about where they got it from, or essentially the, they they don't remember where they got it from, or the club the event they were in is already like cancelled from now on. So it's like a bit bittersweet memory. Oh, there was this event I attended 10 years ago, but it's now gone. Oh. So, okay, from my understanding, you actually have some questions for me as well. So how to turn tables, I guess. Do you want to forward them, or I can answer them here as well if you want?
I can ask you the questions now. Yeah.
Sure. Please do.
We had a couple questions from our own community regarding the WTC. One of the first one was, what was your decision on the putting in opaque terrain so that there's no windows, it's fully line of sight blocking. So there were some questions regarding that. So maybe you could clarify that for us and why you decide to go with that.
Sure. We essentially want to make as many different types of armies playable, and since this is not a singles event, that's sort of up to us. We cannot just have Games Workshop be like making the rules for it, because some armies are out of meta, and we want to make as much as armies playable. And once we get into that, we need to make even the least likely armies to work. And these are the knights, or essentially the big models with 18 plus wounds. And although that's why we have the opaque windows, like we have the closed walls in the 9-inch tall ruins. Otherwise, the big models have no place to hide in the field, and that makes them unplayable. And although this might be like, people might think, oh, nobody plays knights anyway, why are you bothering with it? Once you consider this is a team event of 8, and once you start going through the top list to create your team, after number 5 or number 6, you sort of get into the position of, okay, now what? Now which one? Because there's no good selections left after that point. Regardless of time, even edition or when, you are always going to need some out of standardized thinking armies, and people have great success with knights and other, like say the Mortarium Magnus and the two keepers or two Lord of Changes, essentially the greater demons. And if we didn't have big line of sight blocking ruins, those armies would be out of contention directly. So we want to make as many armies playable. We know that people think this might be a bit too cumbersome for terrain, and there's too much line of sight blocking, but we're just trying to make our event work.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. And I think another question that we have from our community was, so you guys do your own FAQ. So what are some of your logics regarding, your own ruling, certain unexpected or loosely written interactions? How do you guys come to these conclusions when you guys do your own FAQs?
First of all, shout out to Tom Adriani, who actually collects all the questions and actually writes the FAQs. He's the one who compiles everything and makes one proper document. And I just make it pretty. And he's the one who had been doing it for several years now. So thanks, Games Workshop, for putting out a great game with no problems at all. But the idea is this: there are some gray areas, and everybody would agree that they are gray areas. And these need to be solved one way or the other. And we don't really have a time to in the tournament to make a captain's meeting or a players meeting to resolve those issues beforehand. We only have 5 days, and it's an event that's once per year. So once we enter it, we need to reduce the gray areas as much as possible and make it zero. As if ideally, although people might not be happy with certain rulings, they need to be aware that those rulings exist, and that's the idea. That's the idea behind the WTC FAQ, and they are not there to provide universally correct answers. They are there to provide the correct answers for us, and that's the reason we are doing it. We just want to reduce arguments. This is not the universal truth. This is not the gospel. This is more like this is for us. That applies to essentially the WTC map packs as well. We are trying to make it for us and not bring a universal standard to 40k. We just say this works for us.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great. Thank you for your clarification there.
Before we turn off the recording, I would like to ask you how can people find out about Team Korea more? Like, can you shout out your socials and Twitter or Instagram or wherever you have?
Yeah, so our community have recently just started our own podcast as well. It's called the Warp Report, and it was also done by our community members, Nick, Luke, and Rock.
Awesome.
And they're doing a really great job. And of course, we have three very active community play centers. One is Sungdo, where I live, and I got like 4 tables in my house. And we have Benny, who lives in Seoul. He has about 4 or 5 tables in his house as well. And then we got Demetrius, who lives in Pyeongtaek. He lives really close to the U.S. Army base. So if there are any people from U.S. Army, if you guys ever want to play, roll some dice, you guys can hit up Demetrius. You guys can try to contact us through Kakao Talk, and I'm sure we can hook you up. And yeah, so those are the main 3 points. And just maybe you can leave a URL link.
I will
perhaps,
get links from you and put it in the descriptions for the podcast and the YouTube recording as well.
Awesome. And then they can just come and join our group, and from there you can say, hey, I'm really interested in playing competitively, or I'm just getting into the hobby. Yeah, our community is super friendly, and we are always welcoming new players and letting them really enjoy this Warhammer. And we love Warhammer because it's a social thing. It's not a video game, where you play with random people. It's a social thing. You actually get to meet people and talk to them in person, and that's the beauty of this hobby. So so come in. Definitely, if you guys ever want to hang out with us, come and join us.
I
recommend it.
I fully agree about the social aspect, because it's essentially like going with a date. I had dates that are shorter than a 40k game, so it's like I get to know my opponent better than her, so it's not just a thing.
Nice.
Okay, thanks for coming on, and I hope this was enjoyable, and I hope you can find links to Korea and the podcast in the description in both the SoundCloud and the YouTube description boxes, and we hope to see you with more interviews that's coming into the squad for the WTC Squadcast podcast. And thanks for listening. See you later.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.